Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video about marketing metrics on day 99 of the lockdown in South Africa. I took the liberty of taking my second paper from 2019 to explain concepts relating to marketing metrics, how to analyze graphs, and how to determine operational procedures to increase our marketing effectiveness, operational effectiveness, supply chain logistics effectiveness. In essence, how to read graphs and out of that adapt your strategy or your operational procedures to ensure that you run your business more effectively. The graphs and the statistics taken in this example, in this paper that I'm giving you, relates to 2019, and all the information in this graph or information that I'm giving you are fictionists, so they don't relate to real life. Even though it relates to a real life company, the stats are real, it's made up stats. So the company we took is Spar. Spar is one of the top 3 FMCG retailers in South Africa. Now the scenario is that the Spar Group Limited company CEO gives you access and he gives to his marketing metrics, and based on each individual metric you have to advise the CEO on possible marketing problems and or solution you can give for Super Spar based on the following graphs. And then it's stated again, to simply say which element is the highest or lowest is not enough. You have to come up with potential reasons why this might be the case, if that is the case, as well as the potential problems which you think might arise due to this, as well as possible solution which you can give based on your own logical insight. As mentioned before, on many of the videos, every person might give a different solution. It does not mean that the one is wrong or the other one is right. One might be wrong, the other one might be right, but it can also be a scenario where both are correct and therefore require more investigation. Right, so the first one that I'm looking at is unfrozen chicken sales. Like I said, this is just made up graphs. And the question asked, it states this metric compares the sales figures for 3 months with each other. Got your May sales, the black one, the June sales is the green one, and the July sales is the brown one. Okay. The CEO complains that a lot of fresh, unfrozen chicken gets thrown away when sales suddenly drop twice a month and then are left with products which become bad. So as you can see, if we extrapolate the figures on top of each other for the 3 months, you see there's a tendency. Beginning of the month there's sales and it drops off, and then in the middle of the month it rises, then it drops off again, and at the end of the month it rises up again. Now, just remember, keep this in mind. While I'm seeing this, it's important for you to note, you will see there that this graph and those two don't fit exactly on top of each other. It's because the month of June only has 30 days, whereas May and July have got 31 days. Before I go on, it's vital for you to remember that February has got 28, 29 days, and therefore the stats and sales graphs for February would normally be slightly less than the rest of the year. So even though you can compare month to month, the system which happens in industry, in the retail sector, is that they take 13 months comparing with 13 months. Then you don't have the scenario where February, simply because it's got less days, you think operationally you did something incorrectly because the sales figures are lower. So in retail, they take a revolving 13-week period, because 13 weeks should technically cover 3 months. Okay, that being said, if you look at this graph, we will see that there's a dropping off, a peak, and another valley dropping off. So that happens twice a week. So the scenario is that the CEO generated a problem or raised a concern that they get a lot of fresh chicken, unfrozen, and there's good sales, and then the chicken becomes bad. And then there's good sales again, and the chicken becomes bad, and then there's good sales again. So what do we do in these two areas? The advice you have to give will have to help him that they don't throw away as much chicken. Now, obviously, you can just say, listen, take the fresh chicken and put it in the deep freeze that it freezes in the island freezers. But in every retail environment, you will have a scenario whereby people simply don't do their job in any company work. It happens like that. So ideally, you don't want to have a scenario where people have to pack out the fresh chicken, look at the sell-by date, and put it in the freezer because somebody at some stage will not do their job. So yes, that might be a solution, put it in the deep freezer, but you're still going to have some losses. Now, within the South African context, what happens here, in South Africa, we've got a lot of government grants going for pensioners, and they normally get paid in the middle of the month. So that would imply that people who get salaries get paid at the end of the year, end of the month. So they do a lot of sales at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, whereas pensioners, they do a lot of sales in the middle of the month, a lot of their buying. So what one would advise a company like Spar to do, although it's risky, but it might help with these deep valleys, especially when there are items which doesn't get sold and will become bad, is run promotions or run discounts on these two areas. Drop the price slightly and try and pick up the sales. And obviously just while stocks last, to ensure that you don't have damages. It's better to have, in Afrikaans we've got a saying, it's better to have half an egg than an empty shell. So it's better to make some profit than making the entire loss. Okay, so the next one is advertising costs versus new customers generated. So you've got your cost. Once again, note that you need to multiply it by 1,000. So that is most probably 17,000 South African rand that you spend versus new customer generated, which are in hundreds. So that's most probably guessing 200 new customers are generated for 13, 12, no, 17, 18,000 rand being spent. Now, if we look at this, always look at the scenario where the inverse all of a sudden happens. Like you would have the light gray, which is the new customer generated here, is low, it's low, it's low, and there it jumps a lot. The cost on the other side is a lot here and a lot there, and it inverses here with this one as well. So analyzing graphs, always look at the one that's opposite to the rest. That's your first starting point. So what we can gather here is that the cost of printed ad is a lot, whereas we don't generate a lot of new customers. But flyers generate a hell of a lot of new customers, and it doesn't cost us a lot. So in this instance, it seems like promotions cost the most, followed by printing, and then billboards, and then flyers. And the cost comparison for these is, in this, promotions is the worst, followed by printed. You take the one as a function of the other, how many times that little sliver can go into this entire column. That's how you compare apples with apples. So the advice you would give him is drop sales promotions, and rethink seriously printed ads as well, and rather spend that and do more flyers. Because if this little amount of expenditure on flyers can generate, um, that would be say 37, 38, uh, uh, 3,700, 3,800 new customers. That is quite a investment wise. That's a very good winnable solution. Um, Even in this, just note that you need to take the picture in its entirety, because you might pick up that yes, we get a hell of a lot of customers from flyers, but the people coming with flyers in hand to the store buying things might just buy the chicken and the things on discount. Whereas people in the printed ad, they might buy bigger grocery trolleys full of goods, and they might spend greater amounts. So it's always dangerous to take a graph in seclusion and think that you're going to get an answer out of that. So it might, if you were to compare this with something else, um, and you generate a trolley size, there is a actual, when I worked at ShopRite head office, there is a functionality where they talk about basket size. So they'd simply take a look at the till transactions, the cashier transactions, and see how many items or what was the total amount of each customer. You can get information like that and extrapolate it into this to get sort of an idea. Listen, people who are responding on flyers, are they taking small baskets of good home, whereas people on printed ads, um, did they take more stock home, and with their monthly bill or the weekly bill or the amount of sales they're doing, is that higher? So watch out that you don't take graphs and statistics in seclusion and don't compare it with something else. And you will always get a scenario where you look at the information and ask questions like I'm asking now. And out of the questions, try and come up with solutions. And there are always scenarios where you want extra information, where you will talk with IT and ask them, please add this graph or this statistics, add it to it that I can do a better analysis. Never ever sit in a scenario where you keep with what you have. Um, I remember when we worked at ShopRite head office, we were a few people starting there and working on the stock forecasting and replenishment forecasting. They launched a new system uh, on half of the stores, and it increased the profit margin of ShopRite Group. Just by implementing it on half the stores, it increased the profit margin by 18%. Now, over a multi-billion-dollar industry, that's massive. Um, and even in that, we were a handful of people that worked on it. And daily, we changed graphs. Like I mentioned in another video before, we had a weekly meeting with the Chief Operating Officer, Peter Engelberg, who's now the CEO, and IT weekly on Tuesdays, starting at 6 o'clock, going home. I mentioned it before, late into the night, early next mornings. And how can we better the statistics, get more information out of what we are looking at, to make better managerial decisions and on the run adapt the strategies. So never underestimate the potential you have from graphs and statistics. Okay, the next one, profitability of bakery products. Advise the CEO based on the bakery profitability. On the left, you've got, remember, this one is thousands and that one is percentage. So the black one is sales in thousands. So that's 50,000 white bread. The stats might be a little bit high, but it's not, it does not, the graph does not give you indication, is that per annum, is that per month, is that per week? So we don't know. But in this instance, the sales in thousands, all the black ones, And then the general profit, or in retail, they often refer to something as GP, the GP percentage. Um, that one is low, that one is lower, that one is quite good. But the first thing that stands out is just that there's your zero line. So we've got a negative profitability in this scenario. We're actually making a loss on pies. That's not good. Now, in retail, you might want to make a loss on a certain item to ensure that people come into your store. So if the strategy was, listen, people don't come in a store and just buy pies. They buy a cool drink and a packet of chips or whatever in addition to that. But on our cool drink and our packet of chips, the profit is very high. Um, then it might make sense to make a slight loss on pies. Still 10%, one doesn't want to really go into 10%. One might go and break even, 2% loss or something like that. So advise them because they've got quite a hefty amount of sales, 80,000 sales of pies. So one can either make it a 0 point or break even scenario where we push up the price of pies slightly. But if that is the case, try and do it in a way, or identify a product where you know for a fact that people will not buy that item by itself, and also where the other product, because in retail you can actually do basket analysis. For every sale, you can check from which product category that the people pick their basket. And out of that, you can see, and this is again, IT needs to develop a system where you can do this, to see where you can do cross promotions or something like that. And out of that, you might see that people who buy pies, they buy chocolates. Then you need to increase the price of your chocolates a lot to ensure that you make more money out of it. So in the end, the basket makes a profit for you. So don't always think that just drop the sales or increase the profit margin of pies. There might be a reason for it. Although this should, the red warning light should go on immediately the moment you see something is in the negative. And depending on how you structured your information, this might be also a scenario whereby at the end of the day, there's a lot of pies left over and the company throws it away. So it might not be a scenario whereby the company actually makes a loss based on the input cost. It might be a scenario where they make a loss because they simply bake too many in a day and therefore they make a loss. Now, I know a lot of retailers, they got pig farmers who in the end of the day, they just come and collect the food and they pay a certain amount to the retailer. You can do that or sponsor the food, although there's an entire chaos on it. This is something I've never understood. People without food, retailers sometimes give them food, which is on the day of the sell by or a day later. Now, retail from experience, you know that on day 7 the product would become bad, but you put the sell by date on day 5 of the production. So to ensure that you don't have a scenario where your customers become sick, now they give that item which is on the sell by date on day 6. They give it to poor people who don't have food, and then the poor people will end up complaining on the media. I mean, you get it for free. Yes, it's beyond the sell by date, but you're not going to get sick of it because the sell by date actually gives you 7 days and you got it on day 6. But you will never know how some people think. They just think that retailers want to make them ill and things. So it's sad that often you get a scenario where retailers actually throw away the food. And especially in the European countries, um, Western countries, the countries you can't even take sell-by foods and give it to pigs because there's traceability of the foods, especially in Europe. Um, so whatever strategy you come up with, ensure you know enough about your laws and enough about your operational procedures of your company to ensure you don't end up getting in the media for the wrong reasons. Okay, then you can also see that brown bread has got a lot of sales, very little profit. Now, in the South African context, the government subsidizes it, and a lot of countries they actually cap the profit margin on basic good like brown breads. Um, so it might be a scenario in certain areas where you can't really increase your profit margin on that product. So keep that in mind. Although in this instance, I would try to think of a way that if that was not, the price was not your only possible strategy, um, one can possibly increase the GP, general profit percentage on bread rolls slightly. Um, you can actually advertise your health breads more, or there's a lot of reasons or extra things that you can do. But the starting point number one, pies doesn't look good, and brown breads need to be looked at as well. Okay, then promotional effectiveness of cola brands. Now you've got three different cola brands here: Kingston Cola, Spark Cola, and Coca-Cola. So that's the in-house brand for Spark. Kingston is a close follower of Coca-Cola in South Africa, although the statistics is not nearly as close as this indicates. Like I said, this is just made up stats. So if we look at this, the question is how effective is the promotions for these different cola brands? So we got normal turnover when the item is not on the promotion, the black one. Then we've got when we're doing a promotion or advertising campaign, what happens with the sales, the blue, and then the pink one is the cost of promotion. So if we look at this, you spend 400, like I said, there's not, is that 400 Rand or whatever. It might be that this is actually more. It does not say, is it flyers that was printed? Is it newspapers? It does not indicate that. So let's just make that 400 Rand. So the cost of promotion for Coca-Cola would have been 400 Rand, and our sales, because of spending 400 Rand, went up from 600 to 1,000. Now, once again, it does not indicate units, and I purposefully made this like this to give a student the indication that it can be in a test or exam that he can actually mention, but listen, we need to indicate on the graph that we need to refer to, is it units or income or revenue? So the one can actually be units, these two can be units, whereas this one is actually just cost in monetary value. Nonetheless, if we compare what we have, obviously when it's not on normal turnover, our promotion cost would be zero. So if this was simply Rand value, monetary comparison, that amount added to that amount, so it's a break even. So it doesn't really make sense to do promotions because what we spend here ends up being recuperated there. We actually can also make a loss because if this was turnover, which it is in this instance, it's not actually a profit. So this comes on top of this goes on top of that, and in the end you actually realize that listen, we're making a loss if we're going on promotion, because if we sell a bottle of Coke for 15 Rand or 16 Rand 2-liter bottle, or these days 18 Rand or 20 Rand, and our profit might be 10% on that, so it's 2 Rand. Whereas we spend this amount of money, so we're actually making a loss if we're doing promotion for Coca-Cola specifically. But if we compare these three with each other, and we look at the amount of jump it had between normal turnover versus promotional turnover as a function of the cost of promotion, it seems like that Kingston seems to be the best option for us to use promotions on. So one would advise the company to rather stop with promotion, definitely on Coca-Cola, and rather try, and even in Spark Cola, if we look at that, on top of that, it's almost the same system that we have in Coca-Cola. So the only one that actually makes sort of sense is Kingston Cola. But even in this, you want to verify the graphs, you want to verify what is normal turnover. Is it units or is it monetary value? And based on that, that can influence your answer. Okay. Then the next one, sales and delivery cycle for 500 ml cans of Coca-Cola or bottles of Coca-Cola. Now the first sub-question is how many days does the store order and deliver stock? So we got the brown one is our stock delivered, the blue one is our stock ordered, the lime green one is our stock level, and the purple one is our sales. So if we compare this with each other, it seems, let's go on stock because it says stock ordered and delivered. Stock ordered and delivered. Okay, so the blue one, stock ordered slightly lower, 100 units. Then it's 90 units. Then that's close to 110 units, perhaps 115 units. And then it is just about 100 units, and then it goes down to 80 units and so forth. Whereas the stock delivery, we're asking on the ordering and delivering. The green one, you got 50,000 going up to, 50 going up to 100, coming down to 90, going up to 110, 115,000 coming down. So if I just have to compare the green with the blue, the brown with the blue one, it seems that 6 might, it seems like a repetition there. And in the beginning, that is repeated to that. 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 So it seems like from this it jumps to that one. From this it jumps to that one. So if we compare this, 6 May and delivery is on 8 May. So it seems also, every second day it's 0. Both for ordering and delivery. So ordering and delivery, how many days? Every second day. That's an easy question. Now the next question is, Spar wants to run a promotion on Coca-Cola, but they have a very small store. Give them advice from a strategic perspective by looking at the above graph. Okay, now normally one would say they want to run a special, so they need to order up. They need to order extra and put it in the storeroom, and as the stock moves out the front door, just loads up. But now specifically in this question, they said they've got a very small store. It does not say about the storeroom though. Although this generally is accepted as being the store, including the storeroom. Um, that being said, the best advice you can give them here is if they're running a special, then order stock daily and let it be delivered daily. Another option is take some of the storage space into slow selling goods, um, try and move that out of the storeroom. That you have more back storeroom space for in the store itself for the items. Then size of the demographic group versus the sales turnover per group. So the amount of customers is in hundreds, whereas the monthly sales is in thousands. So the amount of customers and sales, they seem to almost, well, the first two are quite the same. The last one is not the same. Once again, look at where you're comparing two things with each other. Look at where there's an inverse happening or where the difference between the two are the highest. So those two look the same. That's a big difference, but the massive difference is here. So in this instance, we've got it's multiplied by 100. So we've got 100 customers generating 5,000 sales. Now that's only 50 Rand. I know it's a bit of a stupid comparison, but you get the idea. So that's about 5,000 in sales is generated by 100 people. In the first instance, one would go and say, listen, but this thing in its entirety makes no sense because if every person in this age group only spends on average sorry, let's go to this one. Amount of customers is 100 and monthly sales is 1,000. So if we compare these two, sorry for going back on myself, I need to just make clear on this. You've got 100 customers and the sales units is 1,000. So that implies people by the age of younger than 16 spend on average 10 Rand. That's their basket size. That's not a good thing. Obviously, the basket size on the other ones, this is almost exactly the same, or this is exactly the same because it's the same, but also in this group. So our first point that we can look at is that we need to ensure that people's basket sizes are bigger. How do we ensure that people buy more than 10 grams of goods and go out the store? If I were given this stats, I would immediately, from my experience in retail, just say, but something is wrong here. It's impossible that their basket size was so small. But if you did not pick that up, like you'd see the mark point is only 2. So if you were giving me that answer, it would have been correct, depending on how you argue it. But you can also give the scenario where you're saying, listen, we need to focus our advertising a lot on the age group of 46 to 55, because even though there's only 100 people coming in the store, they're generating 5,000 in sales. Or you can even go and say, listen, we need to age group younger than 16, so they might be people who like sweets and things like that. Children like energy with sweets and things like that. So these people buy groceries, these people will most probably buy sweets or cool drinks. So try and get a system going for these guys to up their trolley, their basket size, to have a buy one, get discount on the next one, or buy 3 units and get the 4th unit for free or something like that. So all depending on how you argue, you can give different scenarios and come up with different possible solutions to take the information that is available in front of you and come up with a solution to drive up sales. Okay, I hope that information helps you and the analysis of this paper. Like I've said before, if you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a mail. Thanks.